Captain Jake Morrison stood at the front window of his ship, the UES Liberty. Outside, he could see the biggest space station he had ever laid eyes on. The metal structure was huge, spinning slowly around the orange planet below. This was it. After years of preparing, humans were finally going to meet the aliens who ruled the galaxy. Jake had been chosen to lead this mission because he was calm under pressure. He had fought in 3 wars and commanded ships for 20 years. But today, his hands were shaking just a little bit. Everything depended on making a good first impression. The space station belonged to the Galactic Council. 12 different alien races worked together to control most of the known galaxy. They had technology that humans could only dream about. Their ships could travel between stars in days, not months. They had weapons that could destroy entire planets, and they had been watching Earth for the past 50 years. The message had come 6 months ago. A simple communication that changed everything for humanity. The aliens wanted to meet. They were willing to talk about letting humans join their group. It was the chance of a lifetime. Jake walked back to where his crew was getting ready. Commander Lisa Harper was checking her uniform one more time. She was the best pilot in the human fleet, and her job was to show the aliens that humans knew how to fly their ships properly. Next to her sat Rex, her German shepherd. The big dog was wearing a special collar that showed he belonged to the Earth delegation. Dr. Alex Turner was reading through his notes again. He was the team's scientist, and he knew more about alien technology than anyone else on Earth. His golden retriever, Scout, was lying at his feet. The dog looked calm, but his ears were up and alert. Engineer Kate Phillips was the youngest member of the team. She was only 25, but she had designed some of the best parts of their ship. Her border collie, Max, was sitting next to her chair, watching everything with bright, intelligent eyes. The aliens had been told that humans would bring companions with them. The human government thought it was important to show this part of their culture. Dogs had been with humans for thousands of years. They were friends, helpers, and family members. Bringing them seemed like the right thing to do. The ship docked with a soft bump. Jake could hear the air systems connecting and equalizing pressure. In a few minutes, they would walk out and meet beings from other worlds. He took a deep breath and nodded to his team. The doors opened with a hiss. Jake walked out first, followed by Lisa and Rex, then Alex and Scout, and finally Kate and Max. The docking bay was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows above them. The walls were covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. But it was the aliens that made Jake stop and stare. The first one was tall and thin, covered in scales that changed color in the light. It had a long neck and a head that was shaped like a snake's, but bigger. Its eyes were yellow and looked very old. This was Ambassador Thylex from the Zephyrian Empire. Next to him stood something that looked like it was made of living crystal. It was roughly human-shaped, but light passed through its body in strange ways. Colors moved inside it like slow lightning. This was the representative from the Crystalline Collective. The third alien looked like a giant insect. It was as tall as a human but had 6 arms and legs that clicked against the metal floor when it moved. Its head had huge compound eyes and mandibles that opened and closed constantly. The translator device around its neck said it spoke for the hive mind. There were others too, a creature that looked like it was made of flowing water. Something that might have been a plant, but walked on root-like legs. A being of pure energy that flickered inside a containment suit. They were all staring at the humans. But Jake realized they were not looking at him or his crew. They were looking at the dogs. Rex walked calmly next to Lisa, his training keeping him steady despite the strange sights and smells. Scout stayed close to Alex, his tail wagging slightly. Max looked around with curiosity, his head tilted to one side. Then the laughter started. It began with Ambassador Thylex. The sound that came from his throat was harsh and grating, like metal scraping against stone. The translator made it sound like human laughter, but there was something mean about it. The crystal being started to pulse with colors that the translator said meant amusement. The insect creature made clicking sounds that turned into chittering laughter. Soon all the aliens were making sounds that meant the same thing. They were laughing at the humans. Primitives, Ambassador Thylex said. His voice came through the translator as smooth and cold. They bring their food animals as companions. How amusing. How completely backward. Jake felt his face get hot, but he kept his voice steady. These are not food animals. They are our companions and friends. They have been with humanity for thousands of years. This made the laughter get louder. Friends, the crystal being said, its colors pulsing faster. It thinks the creatures with no language are friends. They do have language, Dr. Turner said, stepping forward. They communicate in ways that we are still learning to understand. They can solve problems, show emotions, and form complex relationships. The insect creature's mandibles clicked rapidly. Problem-solving food, even more convenient. Engineer Phillips spoke up, her young voice clear in the huge space. They are not food. In our culture, eating dogs is considered wrong. They are family members. Family, Ambassador Thylex repeated, and his scales shimmered with what looked like disgust. A species that cannot tell the difference between itself and its livestock. No wonder they have not advanced beyond their single planet. The meeting that followed was short and disappointing. The humans were given a tour of part of the station, but it was clear that the aliens were not impressed. Every time one of the dogs did something normal, like sniffing the air or looking around, the aliens would make comments about primitive behavior. When Rex sat down on command, they called it basic training for livestock. When Scout brought Alex a dropped pen, they said it was simple fetch behavior. When Max solved a puzzle that Kate had brought to demonstrate intelligence, they claimed it was conditioned response, nothing more. The final meeting with the Galactic Council was held in a room that could have held 1,000 beings. The human delegation sat at a small table in the center, surrounded by representatives from all 12 major alien civilizations. The decision was announced by a being that looked like a tree made of metal. Its voice was deep and echoed strangely in the large room. The species known as humans has been evaluated by this council. While they show some promise in technology and space travel, their emotional dependence on non-sentient creatures indicates a lack of mental development necessary for full membership. Jake started to object, but the metal tree continued. Humans are hereby classified as a pet-dependent species. This classification is reserved for civilizations that have not yet evolved beyond the need for animal companionship. Such species are considered too emotionally primitive for full participation in galactic affairs. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Pet-dependent species. It was an insult that would follow humanity for years to come. You are granted observer status only, the metal tree announced. You may watch our proceedings, but you have no vote in council decisions. Trade agreements will be limited to basic resources only. Advanced technology sharing is forbidden until your species demonstrates proper emotional maturity. Lisa's hand dropped to Rex's head, and the dog looked up at her with warm, trusting eyes. In that moment, Jake realized that no matter what these aliens thought, the bond between humans and dogs was something precious. It was something that made humanity special, not primitive. But as they walked back to their ship in silence, Jake could not shake the feeling that they had just been judged by beings who understood power and technology, but had forgotten what it meant to love and be loved in return. The laughter of the aliens followed them all the way back to the Liberty. 6 months had passed since the terrible meeting with the Galactic Council. Earth had tried to move on, but the shame still burned in every human heart. The aliens had made it clear that humans were not welcome as equals. They were seen as children, playing with pets too simple to understand the real galaxy. Admiral Susan Lee sat in her office at Terra Command, reading reports from the outer colonies. Her husky, Storm, was sleeping on a thick mat beside her desk. The dog's gray and white. Fur rose and fell with each breath. Storm had been with Susan for 8 years through good times and bad. He was more than a pet. He was family. The communication alert made both of them jump. Storm lifted his head and looked at Susan with bright blue eyes. She reached over and scratched behind his ears before answering the call. The face that appeared on her screen was not human. It was Ambassador Thylex, the snake-like alien who had laughed at them 6 months ago. His scales were darker than usual, and his yellow eyes looked worried. "Admiral Lee," he said, and his voice carried none of the mockery from their first meeting. We have a situation that affects all life in the galaxy. Susan leaned forward. What kind of situation? The Devourers have awakened. The words hit Susan like a physical blow. She had read about the Devourers in the historical files the aliens had shared. They were machine beings that had nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy 3,000 years ago. The war against them had cost billions of lives and left entire star systems empty. Are you certain? She asked. Our deep space sensors detected them yesterday. They are beyond the galactic rim, but they are moving. Our estimates show they will reach the outer colonies within 2 years. Susan felt Storm move closer to her chair. The dog could sense her fear and stress. She put her hand on his head, and the warm contact helped her think clearly. What do you need from us? She asked. Thylex's scales shifted color, showing his discomfort. Nothing. We are informing all species of the threat. We recommend that humans evacuate their colonies immediately. The Devourers show particular interest in biological diversity. Your companions may attract additional attention. Even now, facing the end of everything, the alien could not hide his disgust for humanity's bond with dogs. Susan felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. We will consider your advice, she said. Is there anything else? The Galactic Council will handle this threat as we did before. Primitive species should focus on survival, not military action. The connection ended, leaving Susan alone with Storm. She stared at the blank screen for a long moment, then reached for her secure communication device. Dr. Oliver Stone was working late in his laboratory on Luna, Earth's moon. He had been there for 3 days straight, barely stopping to eat or sleep. His research project was the most secret thing happening in human space. Only 12 people knew about it, and half of them were dogs. Bruno, a Belgian Malinois, was lying on a special platform connected to dozens of sensors and cables. The dog was conscious and alert, his dark eyes focused on Oliver with an intelligence that seemed almost human. How are you feeling, boy? Oliver asked, checking the readings on his screens. Bruno looked at him for a moment, then moved his head toward a panel of buttons and lights. With careful precision, he pressed 3 buttons with his nose. The computer voice said, Good. Ready. More. Oliver smiled and felt his heart race with excitement. The project was working better than he had dared to hope. The neural interface was not just making the dogs smarter. It was letting them communicate in ways that had never been possible before. The idea had come from an old research paper about dolphin intelligence. If humans could enhance their own brains with technology, why not try the same thing with other intelligent species? Dogs had been partners with humans for thousands of years. They already understood human emotions and commands better than most. Aliens understood each other. The first tests had been simple. Could a dog learn to use a computer interface? Could they solve problems that required abstract thinking? The answer was yes, but Oliver had pushed further. The neural enhancement process took 3 weeks. Special nanobots were injected into the dog's brain, where they connected to existing neurons and created new pathways for information processing. The process was safe, but it changed everything about how the dog thought. Bruno was the first success. His intelligence had increased by 5 times, but more importantly, he could think in ways that were different from humans. He could see patterns that human minds missed. He could make connections that seemed impossible. Show me the tactical problem, Oliver said. Bruno looked at the screen that showed a complex military situation. Alien ships were attacking a space station, and the defenders were losing. Human military experts had studied this scenario for months without finding a solution. Bruno watched for 30 seconds, then began pressing buttons. His solution was unlike anything the human experts had considered. Instead of fighting the enemy, ships directly, he suggested using the station's gravity field to create a trap. The enemy would be pulled into a position where they could not escape. Oliver ran the simulation. Bruno's plan worked perfectly. The communication alert interrupted his thoughts. The message was from Admiral Lee, and it was marked with the highest security level. Oliver, we have a problem. The Devourers are back. I need to know if your project is ready for real testing. Oliver looked at Bruno, who was watching him with those intelligent eyes. "What do you think, boy? Are you ready to save the galaxy?" Bruno pressed a single button. The computer voice said, "Yes." Meanwhile, reports were coming in from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council's fleets were preparing for war, but the news was not good. The Devourers had been learning during their long sleep. Their technology was more advanced than before. Their ships were faster, stronger, and smarter. The first battle happened near the edge of Zephyrian space. A patrol fleet of 50 ships encountered a small group of Devourer scouts. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the alien patrol. Not a single Devourer ship was even damaged. Commander Ben Walsh read the battle report from his ship, the UES Defender. His enhanced Doberman Caesar was sitting next to his chair, wearing a new neural interface that Oliver had designed. Caesar was part of the second group of enhanced dogs, and his intelligence scores were even higher than Bruno's. "What do you think, Caesar?" Ben asked, showing the dog the tactical display. Caesar studied the information for a moment, then used his interface to communicate. "Enemy learns fast, uses our patterns against us, need new patterns." Ben nodded. The enhanced dogs were already showing that they could think about warfare in ways that no human or alien had ever considered. They did not think like military officers with years of training. They thought like hunters and pack animals with instincts that went back millions of years. The second battle was even worse for the Galactic Council. The Crystalline Collective sent their best fleet to stop a Devourer advance. The battle lasted 3 days and ended with the loss of 200 ships. The Devourers adapted to every tactic the aliens used, learning from each attack and becoming stronger. On Earth, the secret project was expanding rapidly. More dogs were being enhanced, and the results were remarkable. Each dog that went through the process became not just smarter, but different. They could think in ways that no computer could match. Luna, a border collie working with Captain Ryan Murphy, had developed a new way to calculate jump routes through space. Her method was faster and more accurate than any computer system in Biao. Use Frost, a Siberian husky paired with Dr. Rachel Collins, had learned to read sensor data in ways that revealed hidden patterns. She could predict enemy movements hours before they happened. Tank, a Rottweiler working with Commander Lisa Sharp, had created new battle formations that used the natural pack instincts of the enhanced dogs to coordinate attacks across multiple ships. But the most impressive was still Bruno. His intelligence continued to grow, and he had begun to understand the larger strategic picture. He could see connections between battles that were happening light years apart. He could predict how the Devourers would adapt to new tactics. "They think like machines," Bruno communicated to the research team. "But we think like pack. Pack is stronger than machine." The third major battle proved Bruno right. The hive mind sent their entire military force against a Devourer fleet near the galactic core. The aliens used their best tactics, their most advanced ships, and their greatest warriors. They lost everything. The Devourers had learned to counter every form of military thinking that the galaxy had ever developed. They could adapt to any strategy, overcome any defense, and defeat any fleet. The Galactic Council was in panic. Emergency meetings were held every day, but no one had any new ideas. The same military minds that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were helpless against an enemy that could learn and adapt faster than they could think. That was when Admiral Lee made her decision. She sent a message to the Galactic Council that would change everything. "The human species offers its assistance in the war against the Devourers. We have resources and capabilities that may be useful in this conflict." The response came within hours. Ambassador Thylex appeared on her screen again, but this time his expression was different. He looked desperate. "What could your primitive species possibly offer? Your military is tiny." The news came like a punch to the gut of every living being in the galaxy. The Zephyrian home fleet, the most powerful military force that had ever existed, was gone. Completely destroyed. 53,000 ships had been turned into floating metal, and the crews who had served on them were dead. The battle had happened in the Proxima Centauri system, far from any populated worlds. The Zephyrians had set a trap for the Devourers, using their best strategy and their most experienced commanders. They had been confident of victory. The Devourers had let them think they were winning. Admiral Susan Lee read the battle report with growing horror. The enemy machines had pretended to retreat, drawing the entire Zephyrian fleet into a perfect killing zone. Then they had attacked from 17 different directions at once, using weapons that the aliens had never seen before. The battle had lasted 4 hours. Not a single Zephyrian ship had escaped. Storm, her enhanced husky, was reading the same report through his neural interface. The dog's enhanced intelligence let him process the tactical information faster than most military computers. His reaction was immediate and clear. Enemy learns from every battle, Storm communicated through his interface. They know how all aliens think. They can predict every move. Susan nodded grimly. The Devourers had 3,000 years of data about how galactic civilizations fought wars. They had studied every battle, every strategy, every tactical innovation. They could counter anything that followed traditional military thinking, but they had no data about how dogs thought. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives from 12 different species were talking over each other, their translators creating a wall of noise that hurt to listen to. Fear was in every voice. Panic was spreading through the galaxy like a disease. Ambassador Thylex looked older than Susan had ever seen him. His scales had lost their shine and his yellow eyes were dull with exhaustion. The crystal being from the collective was flickering weakly, its colors muted and gray. The insect representative from the hive mind was clicking its mandibles so rapidly that the translator could not keep up. "Order," shouted the metal tree being that led the council. "We must have order." The room fell silent, but the fear remained thick in the air. "The situation is clear," the metal tree continued. "Our military forces cannot defeat this enemy. They adapt too quickly. They learn from every engagement. We need new ideas." "What new ideas?" demanded the crystal being, its colors flashing angry red. "We have used every strategy developed over the last 3,000 years. The Devourers have counters for all of them." "Perhaps," said a voice from the back of the room. "You need to try strategies that are older than 3,000 years. Every head turned. General Maya Rodriguez walked into the chamber, her boots clicking on the polished floor. Behind her walked Zeus, her German shepherd, but something was different about the dog. He wore a neural interface that glowed softly at the base of his skull, and his eyes held an intelligence that was immediately recognizable to any thinking being. "What is the meaning of this?" Ambassador Thylex demanded. "This is a closed session of the Galactic Council. Primitives are not allowed." "I am General Rodriguez, representing the human military," Maya said calmly. "And this is Strategic Commander, Zeus." The room erupted in laughter, but it was not the same mocking laughter from 6 months ago. This laughter was nervous, desperate, and short-lived. "Strategic Commander?" The insect being clicked. "You give military rank to a food animal?" Zeus padded forward, his enhanced intelligence processing the hostile emotions in the room. He could smell the fear sweat of a dozen different species. He could hear the rapid heartbeats that indicated panic, but he could also sense something else. Hope, hidden beneath the mockery. The dog approached a communication panel and activated it with a touch of his nose. When he spoke, his voice was synthesized but clear, carrying an authority that made every being in the room stop and listen. "Honored delegates," Zeus began, his tactical analysis already working on the data from the recent battles. "Your military doctrine is based on patterns that the enemy has learned to exploit. You think in terms of formations, supply lines, and established command structures. This predictability is why you continue to lose." The room was completely silent. Now. Every translator had stopped working as the aliens struggled to process what they were hearing. A dog was speaking to them as an equal, analyzing their failures with a precision that their own military experts had not achieved. Dr. Emma Clark stepped forward, her tablet displaying the research data that had led to this moment. The neural enhancement process doesn't just make them smarter, she explained to the stunned council. It amplifies their natural abilities while maintaining their unique way of thinking. Dogs evolved as pack hunters. They understand cooperation, misdirection, and persistence in ways that no other species has ever mastered. Captain Ryan Murphy entered with Luna, his enhanced border collie. The dog immediately moved to a tactical display and began manipulating the controls with her nose and paws. Within seconds, she had accessed the battle data from the Proxima Centauri disaster. The Zephyrians fought like prey animals, Luna communicated, through her interface. They bunched together when threatened. They followed predictable escape routes when overwhelmed. The Devourers used this against them. And what would you do differently? The metal tree asked, its voice carrying a mixture of curiosity and desperation that surprised everyone. Zeus looked at the tactical display, his enhanced mind processing information at superhuman speed while retaining the hunting instincts that had made his ancestors successful predators for millions of years. We would hunt, he said simply. Colonel Danny Price watched the aliens' reactions with interest. Some were confused, others were intrigued, but all of them were listening. For the first time since the Devourers had returned, someone was offering a new approach. Explain, demanded Ambassador Thylex. Zeus moved to the center of the room, commanding attention without raising his voice. Pack hunters do not fight fair battles. They do not meet their prey head-on. They use patience, misdirection, and coordinated attacks that come from unexpected directions. The Devourers already do this, the crystal being pointed out, its colors shifting to show skepticism. No, Zeus replied. The Devourers use mathematical calculations to determine optimal attack patterns. They think like machines because they are machines. But pack hunting is not mathematical. It is intuitive. It is based on reading the prey's emotions, understanding their fears, and exploiting their instincts. Dr. Rachel Collins entered with Frost, her enhanced Siberian husky. The dog immediately began analyzing the sensor data from the recent battles, his enhanced senses picking up patterns that even the most advanced computers had missed. The enemy shows behavioral patterns that indicate artificial intelligence limitations, Frost communicated. They process information sequentially, even when using parallel systems. This creates brief windows of vulnerability that traditional tactics cannot exploit. Commander Lisa Sharp followed with Tank, her enhanced Rottweiler. The massive dog approached the tactical display and began creating new formation patterns that bore no resemblance to anything in galactic military doctrine. Pack formations, Tank explained as his patterns appeared on the screen. Each unit supports the others, but they can also act independently. If one pack member is threatened, the others do not abandon their positions to help. They complete the hunt. The aliens stared at the displays in fascination and growing hope. These were not just new tactics. This was an entirely different way of thinking about warfare. You are asking us to fight like animals, the insect being said. But there was no mockery in its voice now. We are asking you to fight like survivors, Zeus replied. Your species have become too civilized, too predictable. You have forgotten the instincts that kept your ancestors alive. General Rodriguez stepped forward, her confidence growing as she saw the aliens' reactions. We propose a joint operation. Human ships with enhanced canine tactical officers working alongside your fleets. Our dogs will provide strategic planning based on pack hunting principles. And if this fails? Ambassador Thylex asked. Zeus looked at him with eyes that held the wisdom of millions of years of evolution. Then we will have tried something new instead of repeating the same failures. Pack hunters do not give up. They adapt. They persist. They survive. The vote was close, but desperation won over pride. The Galactic Council agreed to the joint operation by a margin of 7-5. For the first time in galactic history, non-traditional sentient beings would be given command authority over military forces. As the meeting ended, Zeus approached Ambassador Thylex. The snake-like alien looked down at the dog with an expression that was no longer mocking. You were right to laugh at us 6 months ago, Zeus said quietly. We were just pets then. But the galaxy has changed. The threat has made us evolve. Now we are something new. What are you now? Thylex asked. Zeus's enhanced intelligence processed the question while his ancient instincts provided the answer. "We are the pack that hunts the hunters," he said, "and we do not give up until the hunt is finished." The first joint human-alien military operation was scheduled to begin in Sevi. The first joint operation was supposed to be a simple test. Battle Group 7, made up of 30 human ships and 50 alien vessels, would engage a small Devourer patrol near the Vega system. The goal was to see if the enhanced dogs could actually work with alien crews in real combat. Nobody expected what happened next. Strategic Commander Zeus stood on the bridge of the UES Valiant, watching the tactical displays with his enhanced mind processing information faster than any computer. Captain Tony Bennett, the ship's human commander, stood beside him but knew better than to interfere. In the 3 days since Zeus had been given operational command, the dog had shown tactical abilities that left even veteran officers speechless. "Enemy contact in 30 minutes are," reported the sensor officer, a young woman named Amy Parker. 15 Devourer ships, standard patrol formation. Zeus studied the incoming data through his neural interface. The enemy ships were arranged in a pattern that made perfect mathematical sense. It provided maximum coverage, optimal response time, and efficient resource allocation. It was exactly what any military computer would recommend. It was also exactly what Zeus had expected. "All ships? This is Strategic Commander Zeus," he said through the communication system. Every human crew was used to taking orders from the enhanced dogs, but the alien crews still struggled with the concept. "Prepare for hunting formation Delta 7. Captain Bennett watched the tactical display as the fleet began to move. The formation that Zeus had created looked like chaos to anyone trained in traditional military doctrine. Ships spread out in patterns that seemed random, with no clear lines of command or support. Some vessels moved toward the enemy while others angled away. A few stopped moving entirely and began broadcasting what appeared to be distress signals. "Sir," whispered Lieutenant Mike Davis, the ship's tactical officer, "this doesn't look like any formation I've ever seen." "That's the point," Bennett replied. "The Devourers have never seen it either." On the alien ships, confusion was growing. Commander Zethak of the crystalline collective ship Bright Star was watching his tactical display with increasing alarm. His ship was supposed to move away from the enemy and pretend to have engine problems. It went against every instinct he had developed in 200 years of military service. "This makes no sense," he transmitted to his fellow alien commanders. "We are showing weakness to the enemy. They will attack our damaged ships first." "Trust the plan," came the reply from Captain Sarah Mills aboard the human ship Courage. Her enhanced golden retriever, Buddy, was coordinating with Zeus across the light years of space between them. "The pack knows what it's doing. The Devourers detected the human-alien fleet exactly when Zeus had predicted they would." The machine ships immediately began their analysis, processing the formation and movements of the incoming forces. Their artificial intelligence systems ran through thousands of possible scenarios, calculating the best response to what appeared to be a poorly organized and partly damaged enemy fleet. They decided to attack the ships that were broadcasting distress signals. It was exactly what Zeus had wanted them to do. "Beginning final approach," Zeus announced to the fleet. "Remember, when I give the signal, every ship moves at the same time. No delays, no hesitation." Lieutenant Sarah Brooks was aboard the UES Ranger, one of the ships that was pretending to be damaged. Her enhanced golden retriever, Buddy, was interfaced with the ship's systems, monitoring the approaching Devourer vessels. The enemy was taking the bait perfectly, moving into attack formation against what they thought were easy targets. "Zeus," Buddy communicated through the pack network, "Prey is in position. They see only the weak members of the herd." "Confirmed," Zeus replied. "All ships, execute Phase 2 on my mark." The Devourer fleet reached optimal firing range and prepared to destroy the damaged human ships. Their targeting systems locked onto the vessels broadcasting distress signals, their weapons powered up for the killing blow. "Now," Zeus said simply. What happened next would be studied in military academies for the next 1,000 years. The ships that had appeared damaged suddenly accelerated to full speed, their malfunctioning systems working perfectly. The vessels, that had been moving away from the enemy reversed course and attacked from behind. The ships that had seemed scattered and confused came together in a coordinated assault that hit the Devourer fleet from 7 different directions at once. But the most amazing part was not the tactics themselves. It was how perfectly every ship moved together, as if they were all part of one enormous organism. The enhanced dogs were coordinating the attack through their pack bond, enhanced by technology, but still based on millions of years of hunting instincts. Commander Grace Turner, Zeus's human partner, watched the battle unfold with amazement. She had worked with Zeus for months, but seeing him coordinate an actual fleet battle was something beyond her understanding. The dog was not just giving orders. He was thinking like the pack leader of the largest hunting group in galactic history. The Devourers tried to adapt. Their artificial intelligence systems began processing the new tactical information, attempting to understand and counter the unexpected attack patterns. But every time they thought they had figured out the human strategy, it changed. Zeus and the other enhanced dogs were not following a predetermined plan. They were hunting, reacting to their prey's movements with instincts that no computer could predict. Enemy attempting to break formation, reported tank from the UES Freedom. The enhanced Rottweiler was coordinating the ships attacking from the left flank. They are moving to defensive positions. Let them, Zeus replied. Pack does not chase, fleeing prey into strong positions. We wait. The Devourers formed a defensive circle, their ships positioned to protect each other and present a united front to the attacking fleet. It was a textbook maneuver that had worked against every enemy they had faced in 3,000 years. Zeus studied their formation for exactly 30 seconds. Then he began to smile, an expression that looked strange on a dog's face, but somehow perfectly natural at the same time. Prey has chosen to stand and fight, he announced to the fleet. This is what we wanted. The second phase of the attack was even more devastating than the first. Instead of continuing their assault, the human alien fleet suddenly stopped attacking and began to circle the Devourer formation. They stayed just out of weapons range, moving in patterns that seemed almost lazy. What are they doing? Demanded Commander Zethak from his crystal ship. Why are we not attacking? Patience, replied Luna from the UES Explorer. The enhanced border collie's voice carried a calm certainty that was somehow reassuring. Prey in defensive circle cannot hunt for food. They can only wait and grow weaker. Devourers found themselves in a situation their programming had never encountered. The enemy was not attacking, but they were not retreating either. The machine ships tried to break out of the circle, but every time they moved, the human alien fleet adjusted to block them. When they tried to charge through the encirclement, their attackers simply moved away, maintaining the perfect distance. Hours passed. The Devourer ships began to run low on power as they maintained their defensive formation. Their artificial intelligence systems were running constantly, trying to find a solution to a tactical problem they had never been designed to handle. Energy levels at 60%. Frost reported from his position aboard the UES Storm. The enhanced Husky was monitoring the enemy ship's power signatures. They are weakening. Confirmed, Zeus said. Pack has been patient, now we finish the hunt. The final attack came from everywhere at once, but it was not the coordinated assault that military doctrine would have demanded. Instead, each group of ships attacked when Zeus sensed the moment was right, like wolves bringing down an exhausted deer. The timing was perfect, but it was not based on clocks or predetermined signals. It was based on the pack's instinct for when their prey was ready to fall. The battle ended with the complete destruction of the Devourer patrol. Not a single enemy ship escaped. More importantly, the human alien fleet had suffered 0 casualties. It was the first time since the Devourers had returned that any galactic force had achieved a perfect victory. Captain Derek Adams was aboard the UES Victory with his enhanced Belgian Shepherd Ace when the after-action report was transmitted to the Galactic Council. The statistics were simple but stunning. 15 enemy ships destroyed, 0 friendly losses, tactical innovations that the Devourers' adaptive systems could not counter. But Zeus was not finished. As the fleet regrouped and prepared to return to base, The enhanced German Shepherd opened a communication channel to the entire Galactic Council. "Honored delegates," he said, his synthesized voice carrying across the galaxy. "We have proven that the enemy can be defeated, but this was only a small patrol. To win this war, we need to think bigger." Ambassador Thylex appeared on the communication screen, his scales bright with excitement for the first time in months. "What do you propose, Strategic Commander?" Zeus looked at the tactical displays showing the positions of Devourer fleets throughout the galaxy. His enhanced mind was already working on the larger picture, seeing patterns and possibilities that no other strategist had considered. "The enemy expects us to fight them fleet by fleet, system by system," Zeus explained. "They have prepared for this kind of war. But what if we do not?" The decision that changed galactic history was made in a room full of beings who had once laughed at the idea of taking orders from a dog. Now, as they voted to promote Zeus to Supreme Strategic Commander of all allied galactic forces, those same beings looked at the enhanced German Shepherd with something close to worship. Admiral Susan Lee watched the voting process from Earth, Storm's warm weight against her leg providing comfort during the tense moments. When the final vote was announced, 12-0 in favor, she felt tears in her eyes. 6 months ago, humans had been dismissed as primitives with pets. Now a dog was about to command the largest military force in galactic history. Zeus accepted the promotion with the calm dignity that had become his trademark. Standing before the assembled representatives of 12 different species, he spoke words that would be remembered for thousands of years. "The pack protects all who cannot protect themselves," he said simply. "That is our purpose, that is our promise." The transformation of galactic military doctrine began immediately. Alien crews who had spent centuries following rigid command structures now found themselves taking orders from creatures they had dismissed as mere animals. The learning curve was steep and sometimes painful. Colonel Danny Price found himself serving as Zeus's primary human liaison, translating the enhanced dog's revolutionary strategies into terms that alien commanders could understand and implement. It was not easy work. Traditional military thinking was like a deep groove worn into stone. Getting entire fleets to think like pack hunters required breaking habits that had existed for thousands of years. The first major test came in the outer spiral, where the Devourers had established massive shipyards. Instead of the frontal assault that every military expert expected, Zeus implemented what he called the long hunt. Captain Tony Bennett commanded one of the dozens of small fleets that began harassing Devourer supply lines throughout the region. His ship, the UES Valiant, worked with Luna, Ryan Murphy's enhanced border collie, to coordinate attacks that seemed random but followed a deeper pattern that only the pack could see. "Strike the fuel depot at Delta 7, Luna communicated to the scattered human and alien ships. "Withdraw before reinforcements arrive. Next target will be revealed when prey shows weakness." The alien crews struggled to understand. They wanted detailed battle plans, supply schedules, and clear objectives. Instead, they got what seemed like endless raids that accomplished nothing significant. But Zeus saw the bigger picture. Like wolves wearing down a massive elk, the combined fleet struck at communications nodes, fuel stations, and isolated outposts. Each attack was small, seemingly unimportant. The Devourers adapted to each individual strike, but they could not adapt to the overall pattern because there was no pattern that their machine logic could understand. Dr. Rachel Collins monitored the enhanced dog's neural activity from the command ship UES Courage, watching in fascination as Frost and the other enhanced canines maintained perfect coordination across vast distances of space. The pack bond that evolution had created millions of years ago was now enhanced by technology and amplified across the galaxy. Months passed. The long hunt continued. The Devourers found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to engage in decisive battles. Every time they concentrated their forces to crush what they thought was the main threat, the attacks would shift to a completely different sector. Their artificial intelligence systems ran constantly, burning through computational power, as they tried to find a solution to a problem they had never been designed to handle. "Enemy fleet movement detected," Tank reported from his position aboard the UES Freedom. The enhanced Rottweiler was coordinating attacks in the Centauri sector. They are sending reinforcements to protect the main shipyard. Confirmed, Zeus replied from his command position. Pack has been patient. Prey is weakening. Time to reveal the true hunt. The revelation came when the Devourers committed their largest fleet to what they thought would be the final battle. Every remaining machine ship in the galaxy converged on the Andromeda approach, where Zeus appeared to have concentrated the entire Allied force for a desperate last stand. The aliens expected the climactic battle of the war. Their military doctrines demanded that all available forces be committed to this decisive engagement. Even the enhanced dog's human partners thought this would be where the fate of the galaxy was decided. They were all wrong. Commander Lisa Sharp watched from the UES Freedom as Zeus's true strategy unfolded. The fleet at the Andromeda approach was real, but it was not the entire Allied force. It was just enough ships to make the Devourers believe they faced the final battle, while the majority of the Galactic fleet remained hidden throughout space. All units, this is Strategic Commander Zeus, came the announcement that every ship in the galaxy had been waiting for. The hunt ends now. Captain Derek Adams led the first surprise attack, emerging from behind a gas giant with his enhanced Belgian Shepherd, Ace, coordinating with battle groups that were light years away. The Devourers had expected an attack from the ships they could see. They were not prepared for coordinated strikes that came from 17 different directions, simultaneously. But this was not just a military victory. It was the ultimate expression of pack-hunting instincts applied to galactic warfare. Each attack group struck at precisely the moment when Zeus sensed the enemy was vulnerable, like wolves coordinating their assault on exhausted prey. The timing was perfect, but it was not based on computer calculations or predetermined schedules. It was based on millions of years of evolution and the enhanced intelligence that allowed the pack to think as one organism across impossible distances. The Devourers tried to adapt, but their machine logic could not process what was happening to them. They faced an enemy that operated on principles their creators had never encountered. Pack dynamics, persistence hunting, and coordinated instincts that had evolved in Earth's wilderness were concepts that no artificial intelligence had ever been programmed to understand. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Devourer threat was eliminated completely. Not a single machine ship remained operational. The ancient enemy that had nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy 3,000 years ago was finally defeated. As debris from the enemy fleet drifted through space, Zeus opened a communication channel to every ship in the galaxy. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of ultimate victory. The pack endures, he said. The pack protects. The hunt is finished. The ceremonies that followed made history in ways that no one had anticipated. Zeus became the first non-traditional sentient being to receive the Galactic Medal of Honor. The enhanced Canine Tactical Corps became a permanent part of Galactic Defense Forces. Most importantly, humanity was granted not just full membership in the Galactic Council, but a permanent seat on the Strategic Planning Committee. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the galaxy viewed the bonds between different species. The relationship between humans and dogs became the model for a new kind of cooperation that spread throughout galactic civilization. Other species began forming partnerships with the intelligent life forms from their own worlds, discovering that diversity of thought was the greatest weapon against any threat. Ambassador Thylex stood before the assembled council for the final ceremony, his scales bright with colors that indicated deep respect. In his hands, he held a specially designed collar that marked Zeus as the first supreme strategic commander in galactic history. 6 months ago, we laughed at humans for bringing their companions to our halls, Thylex said, his voice carrying to every corner of the galaxy through the communication networks. We called them primitives who could not distinguish between themselves and their pets. We were wrong. He approached Zeus, who stood calmly despite the significance of the moment. Storm, Tank, Luna, Frost, and dozens of other enhanced dogs were present, representing a new form of intelligence that had saved all life in the galaxy. Today we understand that the bond between species is not a weakness, Thylex continued. It is the greatest strength that life can achieve. The pack that includes all thinking beings is stronger than any force that stands alone. Zeus accepted the honor with the dignity that had marked every moment of his service. As the ceremony concluded, and the representatives of 12 species applauded, he looked out at the assembled crowd with eyes that held both ancient wisdom and enhanced intelligence. The beings who had once dismissed dogs as mere pets now looked to them for leadership, protection, and the kind of loyalty that could only be earned through shared struggle and mutual respect. In the vast darkness of space, where countless civilizations had risen and fallen, the pack endured, and the galaxy was safer because of it.